Magic. Can anyone truly explain what it is? Can we really express the true essence and value of it and what it is made of? How to manifest it and where does it come from? Hello, my dear friends. I'm Arith Härger, and today I'm going to share with you some thoughts and perspectives on magic. Just some brief points to take into consideration in order to protect yourselves and have a less bumpy growth in your crafts and in your endeavors to achieve a more meaningful existence in your spiritual inclinations and respective practices. I've told you before, I want you to thrive, and I meant it. Call me a romantic or an idealist, perhaps even delusional. I've been called worse. At this point in my life, I truly believe that if we have a far more animistic perception of the world and we find symbiotic ways to express our artistic spirits and establish a respectful relationship with land and its persons, I think we become far more sensitive to life and its existences and multiple realities. As such, this will have a far greater beneficial outcome for us all and for all life and the world itself. I want people to thrive in their spiritual and practical behaviors towards the supernatural and the natural, because I think we will be happier and it will give us a sense of fulfillment. It will give us a meaningful perception of the gift of existing, and we won't feel so detached from the realities of the world. In fact, I think it will help us to grow out of preconceived and agreed upon sense of the real, which has been constructed to bind us to a dictatorship where individual differences are not respected, celebrated, honored, and even accepted, where there's been a structured pattern for humanity to live as a collective unit, and we have grown accustomed to our routines and have become unimaginative and uncreative, mournful shadows, like animals in captivity whose joy for life has been utterly spent, and no more dreams and desires to see beyond the walls of our confinements, because hope has been rooted out of our very souls, and we have become utterly numb. But before we start, I would like to spare some brief thoughts in relation to the previous video I've made, acquiring magical power, right? I am very happy and also very much surprised concerning the impact that video has had on many of you. I am particularly positively surprised to see that such a video has had over 100,000 views in less than a month, something that definitely and rarely happens in this channel, and definitely does not happen in this channel. As a matter of fact, it is rare for me to even do any sort of video related to magic and witchcraft and such. So the only thing I expected from that video was simply to pass almost unnoticed, to be honest. However, I am pleased, obviously, and quite happy with the feedback. And since many of you have asked for more concerning those themes, well, it led me to make this video today and perhaps go further on these types of themes. Who knows? So thank you very much for your feedback and encouragement, and thank you for being in there. I am surprised that, after all, there are many people out there that, such as myself, are curious and want to learn and grow and express themselves through witchcraft, or let's call it pragmatic behaviors in traditional folk magic. So, aside from what I've expressed on another recent video, as well, if I'm not mistaken, Witchcraft Going Over the Hedge, where I have talked about the need to first reshape our perceptions of reality and change our worldviews, and the urgency to detach ourselves from the social religious conceptions of our human societies and the social and self-imposed demands that repress our creativeness and imagination, which ends up preventing us from developing and go past the civilizational and cultural limitations, thus prohibiting us from interacting with the multiple hidden realities and with the others. Well, I think there is another step we should definitely take in order to survive and thrive in this type of approach and view to life. What we also need is patience. As you have noticed, I talk a lot, and some of you do not have the patience to keep listening, which is perfectly understandable, and I don't blame you and I won't judge you. And you want me to go straight to the point, fair enough. However, that attitude in itself should be briefly expressed to convey an important message if we want to survive and thrive in this sort of subject we are dealing with here today. Lack of patience to listen illustrates the problem with our post-industrial modern societies. People want everything delivered to them fast and now. This isn't entirely people's fault, mind you, but rather an impulsive behavior which is the product of our own highly industrialized societies. And I include myself in that, and I too suffer from that problem, unfortunately. If people have no patience to establish conversations, and if they have no patience to listen, how will they manage to find the patience to do any type of work of magic when things don't start to happen the way people want, and neither as fast nor now as we all want? Everybody wants to be listened to, but rarely wants to listen. Patience is a virtue which is very much required in any work of magic, especially before that, when it is necessary to first go through great lengths, methods, works, and practical behaviors before we really start to do any practical work of magic. I know nowadays we are used to have things delivered to us pretty quickly. We buy something online and we almost immediately go to the window expecting to see it delivered to us right there at that very moment. Or we send someone a message and we get annoyed because people don't answer immediately, and we don't even respect people's personal time, their personal lives, and even the problems and difficulties they have to go through, which enables them to be there 24/7 for us and answer all our questions and whimsical wishes. Some people don't even have the patience to read a 200 pages book without illustrations. Things don't just fall from the sky. And we aren't certainly dealing with something here that can be bought from a company or anything else and delivered at our doorstep. People either have patience and perseverance or they don't. But things aren't simply given to us without any effort. be patient, and you and me will certainly achieve what we have set our minds to. As I said, patience is a virtue that is very much needed, very much required in any work of magic. As I've said in other videos, magic, witchcraft, reshaping our worldviews and construct an animistic perspective takes time. And it is as much a constant experimentation as it is an evolution and expansion of our perceptive reality. This is not an exact science where you go from point A to point B. This is about evolution of our perception of life. The same way we spent a lifetime learning from experience, learning from mistakes and successes, this too takes time because it is, as I've said, a constant experimentation. No one will be able to, let's say, spontaneously manifest anything that we commonly call magic. We need to acquire experience. It's always a work in progress, always. And if we don't establish conversations about it and what it takes to thrive in this, there will be a lot more mistakes than successes. And obviously it becomes frustrating because it will feel life like we are stagnating in life, right? Besides, there's a problem which is taboo, which I shall speak about further ahead, don't worry. You see, it was very pleasant to read some of your comments in previous videos about these subjects and to see that some of you understand and really get it, right? That many things concerning traditional folk magic cannot be openly said, unfortunately. I think the more animistic approach to life you have, the better you understand this statement. Traditional folk magic is also very much about establishing symbiotic relationships with the others. Relationships that require a great deal of respect, honor, no small amount of graciousness and devotion. Ritual is important and boundaries are created to prevent harmful outcomes, which I have explained on other videos, especially concerning animism, videos about animism. Establishing taboo is also important. I'm trying to find loopholes in order to deliver information, and as smoothly and perhaps even as stealthily as I deliver information sometimes, I am delivering it nonetheless. I don't know what else I can say and how can I be more direct than this. The only thing I ask is that you pay attention to what is being told. Don't just hear it, listen. Not just to me, good gods, no, obviously not. I am by no means trying to pose as the Lord of the Manor. I've told you before, it's not money, fame, neither praise nor idolatry, nor seeking to find approval and attention that I am after. It's the freedom to live under my own terms, and that's it. However, I do want to help because I don't want people to pass through the same mistakes and suffer. But then again, where am I to tell you that? You have to inevitably pass through several mistakes in order to gain experience, because if things are just given to us, we won't fully appreciate the effort and their value and what it costs and what we have truly gained. The only thing that I am asking is that be attentive to everything. Listen to your surroundings and listen to what calls to you. Besides, I have shared plenty of insight and even practical behavior on several videos, even in videos that don't seem to deal with these things, but it is there. Even on the great majority of my videos in this channel, which are usually scientific academic works with clear bibliographical references, and it is still there. And I know some of you are truly attentive. I know that, believe me. So we have already established here two important factors in order to survive and thrive: patience and attentiveness. I have used the word magic quite a lot, haven't I? Well, there isn't a consensus of what the term magic means, although most of us have a pretty good idea of what is being implied without the need of a thorough explanation on the term. It's wasted effort trying to define magic. Innumerable minds have attempted to establish its essential meaning. We can go, of course, into a deep and complex analysis of it through historical, cultural, religious, archaeological, anthropological points of view and such, and still lose the sense of it altogether. There are multiple meanings for the term magic, and it can be applied to a variety of messages that do not always determine something supernatural or even spiritual. Although, of course, the earliest definition of magic referred to the religious ceremonies and rituals performed by a priestly figure, by a priest magician. Personally, I see magic, and I'm very much using the term magic here simply as an auxiliary term to define a variety of things that cannot be defined through words. It is like human consciousness. Many people often think in words and cannot possibly express such thoughts through explanatory images. Many people think in images and can't possibly describe the thoughts into spoken or written words. There are many things in life we do not have words to describe, or like the case of love, it's a word people understand, but does not give justice to the fervent, ardent passions and desires of the human soul. Besides, the word love, much like magic, can be applied to convey a variety of messages that do not always intend to neither express physical nor intellectual attraction or desire. So magic is one such case, one such word, just a term to try to convey a message concerning something that can only be felt and lived and experienced. And there's no proper way to describe such emotions. But we feel them nonetheless. We know, we understand. That's the essence of it, I think. That's one step to take, not seeking to understand the multiple meanings of magic and avoid being stuck to terms and labels, but instead relying on lived experiences and what feelings and emotions such experiences awaken us. It's a waste of time seeking to define and understand magic. We as human beings simply try to express by verbal means all the things that we experience as living persons of this world. So we construct words to establish communication. But communication isn't just through words, but also through feelings, sentiments, emotions, through the conscious, the very factors that we cannot properly explain either, which are the foundations of our spirit. Something else that we have several meanings for, and yet we can't explain what spirit truly is. But we know, we sense it, we feel it. It's inherent to every sentient being. Surviving and thriving through the senses. Taboo, keeping secrets. I'm borrowing the word or the term taboo or tapu from Polynesian and Oceanic family languages and cultures because I think it better conveys the meaning I want to express in this particular context. Prohibition is too fixed a word. Taboo, not as the term has been rooted in Western understandings. To be taken into consideration here is not a sense of strict prohibition like we hear so much in our Western non-pagan and non-indigenous religious backgrounds, of a sense of forbidding contact with several entities because of a variety of religious morals and determined religious conduct in life. Instead, people are able to do particular things, therefore they are responsible for their actions and the things they choose to do. It's more on the grounds of responsibilities and act appropriately. Even though there are certain actions in a given community we are restricted from doing because we are perfectly capable of distinguishing beneficial actions from harmful actions, sometimes it is inevitable the breaking of taboo. As such, in those situations, in those moments, and the manner in which we act, we have to approach these moments with proper care and attention. This is something intensely rational. I'm not going to develop here about the relationships that are created through an animistic perception and the types of respect and honor that is established with several entities and the boundaries that are set. I've spoken about it before. However, I continue to believe that our practical approaches to magic, especially when dealing with traditional folk magic, can be a lot more powerful and constructive if we have an animistic mindset. Suffice it to say for now that everything is changeable and negotiable. As such, taboo not only is something rational, but also highly social. To be social and sociable, which requires knowledge of appropriate means of engaging with responsible and powerful entities and persons of the world. That knowledge may come from inheritance or being passed down among the community, but it can also be learned through experience and precisely by establishing relationships with entities with whom we can work with. Perhaps for us pagans, this type of talk is more familiar when we deal with precisely familiar spirits, land spirits, deities, ancestors, all sorts of other than human and more than human persons we engage with through our pragmatic behaviors such as offerings, ceremonies, rituals, etc. We establish relationships with other than and more than human persons. This creates responsibility and the series of actions we continue to take in order to maintain a relationship through respect, establishing symbiotic outcomes, which can only be possible by honoring such relationships with the proper care, attention, decency, politeness. From the moment we establish such relationships within our craft, a series of rules, a series of taboos, rituals, a series of actions and behaviors are established because we are dealing with entities which we see as persons of the world with their own identities, their own behaviors, customs, even their own languages, cultures, and personalities and even individualities. So when we establish respect, it is also demanded to keep information. And there are thousands of reasons for that that lead to keep that information. And we only get to know them, those reasons, precisely when we create these types of relationships. As an example, let's pretend that we constructed a relationship of mutual respect with another human being. It is another person external to us with their own individuality, their own personality. And in this type of relationship, there is information that is developed and revealed that stays between these two persons. It's a question of respect and honoring the faith, confidence, and trust we have established, which is part of loyalty. And if we break that loyalty, that trust, we are at risk of not only losing what was gained through this relationship, but also losing the very person with whom we had established a relationship. Furthermore, a relationship doesn't thrive if we do not make the effort to continue to take action to improve or maintain that relationship through ritual, ceremonies, etc. We keep it active by whatever behaviors and actions that are necessary to continue to strengthen this relationship. This is information that is developed and we gain knowledge, and part of the knowledge is only meaningful to the persons within this relationship, and others don't need to know. And in fact, others should not know lest their lack of understanding harms this relationship, because others have not established relationship with these particular persons we have a relationship with. And their lack of knowledge and knowledge of meaning and importance may create prejudice that has a severe impact upon the relationship. So that's the thing. It's not about avoiding certain persons of the world or avoidance of supernatural energies and powers. Not at all. But rather establishing conversations with persons, and from it knowledge grows. We talk about and share experiences, which will help us to establish relationships. This kind of reminds me of The Name of the Rose, the book by Umberto Eco, which I cannot really remember how the conversation goes, but it's when William of Baskerville is having a conversation with another character, and they speak of how good and bad it is to find the truth of things and the evolution of sciences and overall the knowledge of things. He says something between the lines of the wise keeping knowledge for themselves, often to protect the general public, because the general public is not yet ready to handle the truth and the knowledge of things. It is always too soon to know, because people won't often understand, and all hell breaks loose. So it's a step-by-step process, giving pieces of knowledge at a time. And this is in part what is happening here, more or less. Some people are not yet ready to handle the knowledge and the truth about certain aspects. And believe me, I do get that. All this talk I'm having here today on this video, if someone told me the same things perhaps 15 years ago, not only I would not understand, but probably I would have thought people were being delusional. And maybe it would have made me laugh, perhaps, but also it would have awakened some curiosity in me and to explore and understand. So this also leads us to the same point I have been expressing in other videos. If we do not experience things, if we do not live them, we will never understand them. I can tell you many things and find several loopholes to express knowledge as best as I can, but I cannot make you live this. I cannot be the one to experience this for you. No one can live and experience these things for you. You have to be the one to establish these relationships and go out there and have these experiences in the manner that is more suitable to you. As long as you start to take action and be out there, you will grow in this, and it grows in you. And whatever relationships you create with others, you will certainly establish taboos, which I and others don't need to know. And it's best we don't know. As an archaeologist, as my actual job, my main job, as much as I want to deliver knowledge about everything I discover, and I do in scientific terms, but in these types of situations of a more, let's say, spiritual reality, not everything is allowed to be spoken out loud. And it's not just about keeping the trust we build in a relationship, but it is precisely because when people have not yet experienced certain things, they will not understand. And it's perfectly understandable and natural. And this may have a severe negative impact. It may create prejudice, aversion. It may even create enemies that will try to disturb your craft and disturb this or the relationship or relationships you have built with much effort over the years. And it can all go down in a single moment. I'm certain you understand what I'm talking about, even if you are new to this. We have all been new to something once, and we continue to be new to a variety of things. But we keep learning and developing our skills and enhancing our knowledge. It is important to establish respect, but also avoiding being quick in judgment, especially if we have not yet lived the experiences of others that we don't yet understand and are not yet ready to embark on. Besides, each individual experiences things differently. So we may never perceive the world and our surroundings the same way another person is describing, which is why it is important to have an open mind to extreme possibilities. But extreme here applied depends very much on perceptive reality. Your perception of reality is your own and often doesn't match the perception of reality of another. And let's not forget that what we believe to be real and normal is often an agreed upon conception of a society which forces it on the collective. And worldviews change all the time, and the sense of normality for each society, each culture, each ethnic group, and each period is never the same. Just because we do not perceive reality as others do doesn't mean we are right and doesn't mean we are wrong neither. It just means that we are all built differently and each person perceives realities in different ways. Diversity isn't only applied to the physical aspects of the human body, but very much also on a psychological level, on a perceptive level. Taboo is something we all must respect, our own taboos and the taboos of others. But we can establish conversations to share experiences and find loopholes in order to pass on knowledge without breaking taboo. However, of course, it is also important to point out that there is indeed the case of false taboo. False taboo here in the sense of keeping secrets or keeping knowledge from the public for the sole purpose of pretending to be knowledgeable in something and the desire to pass on a false image of authority over the spiritual, even over the religious. This is something all of us must be careful with, and unfortunately it is inevitable to fall into this from time to time. But then again, it creates experience that will serve us in the future to protect ourselves from those who may want to take advantage of our ignorance and will demand something from us. I don't know, either money, idolatry, reverence, and such. There are, of course, people who pretend to be bound to secrecy and not reveal knowledge because in truth they don't know anything about this, but want to pretend that they do and want to keep their social status, want to keep this illusionary veil of being an authority over a particular subject, especially when it comes to the spiritual and the supernatural. I could be one of such people. I could tell you that I'm not, but you don't truly know me. You don't know me and you don't know my true intentions. What if all of this is a type of reversed psychology? And I'm warning you about this sort of people that keep false taboo, false information, but I'm one of such people doing the exact same thing. You don't know. And that's precisely why you have to be the one to experience these things on your own and exchange experiences, exchange information, and you will gain knowledge, insight, and you will better prepare yourself to protect yourself against those who try to control you and control your creativity. Always be wary when someone tells you you are not dealing with things spiritually in the correct manner and you are not doing the correct thing and only they know how to do it and they are going to teach you, provided that you give them something in return, of course. So have patience, be attentive, work on your senses, and be respectful and rational. But anyway, in traditional folk magic, you will come across, or you have already come across, an important ritualistic prerequisite for the transmission of magical power, which is the power to keep silent, understood as a means to retain magical power, because the breaking of taboo can also lead to the loss of the power you have already gained. It has been believed in folklore, traditional folklore, that passing one's own knowledge of magic results in the loss of such power from the person that is passing the knowledge. And when a person decides to pass knowledge, it is either because they trust the person or the persons they are passing the knowledge to, and they trust their secrecy, or they have found loopholes, or because the person won't have any use for it anymore and is about to die or depart and wants to pass the knowledge. A series of folk beliefs regarding the transmission of magical power from one to another focus on the ability to keep silent, the ability to keep secrets. Again, the reasons are the same pointed out previously, a variety of multiple reasons. You are establishing a relationship of trust with someone. As soon as you put yourself out there and start to take the first steps, and keep in mind that you must be attentive to your surroundings and the little details that start to appear, you will inevitably draw the attention of others. And not just of, let's say, invisible others, but also of persons such as yourself, human persons. This can result in a variety of harmful or beneficial outcomes. So it very much depends if you are willing to create a relationship with someone or not. Depending on your choice, keep it a secret, either to yourself or within the relationship of mutual trust that you have established. We, human persons, are the most dangerous beings we really have to be careful about, and not every type of information should be shared. Keeping secrets is a way to protect yourself from a variety of harmful factors coming from other human beings. Because it's not just the prejudice and judgment of those who don't know, but it is also the personal intentions of those who know and have power and can perceive you. You have been noticed and exposed, and they can take advantage of it, especially if you are taking your first steps, if you are new at this. That's what we shall see further ahead briefly. Essentially, taboo is the encounter between that which is new. When dealing with magic, traditional folk magic, witchcraft, sorcery, call it what you will, many of us are too eager and want immediate results even before truly understanding the implications. And I include myself in that, which is why I don't want others to fall into this very harmful mistake, if you get my meaning. There are persons and powers which are far more powerful, skillful, more able, adapted, and knowledgeable than we are, always. And always keep that in mind, especially when we take our first steps. Eagerness, greediness is blinding. One step at a time is required. Everything is changeable and negotiable, but also transformative. It requires knowledge that can only be gained through experience. And if we throw ourselves into a path we don't yet know, we will fail to see that there were other paths that certainly take longer, but will get us where we want to go nonetheless. And in this journey, there's plenty of realities to be experienced and plenty of knowledge to be gained, which will get us far more prepared to the journey than the persons who threw themselves into the unknown. If you have seen my previous video, Witchcraft Going Over the Hedge, this next bit is nothing new, I think. But I'm hoping to turn this subject into parts to create an ongoing discourse. Not only for anyone who wants to hear it, but for myself as well, as a sort of diary, lest I forget as I grow old. I've said many times that people don't actually need a guide. We don't need a spiritual leader, a religious authority. We don't need to follow. We don't need to idealize a person and follow their lead. It becomes quite limiting for us when we conduct our life according to the perception of another. I think the best approach is always to share information, share experience with one another. We need to be inspired by each other, not to follow. We actually have a perfectly good example of this in the history of humanity. Animistic and indigenous societies have grown and thrived through the sharing of experience over the temporal space of our existence, sharing the important aspects of life that binds us all and binds all things to life itself. Whilst societies that rely on a fixed religion, on an organized and stipulated religious organism, tend to stagnate and detach themselves from life, completely losing a sense of self-control. However, admittedly, for anyone starting alone without teachers and not yet have been inspired by others, it is rather difficult to know where to start, and usually the first impulse for most students of magic without such a background, it is to immediately experiment in order to attract or to communicate with the supernatural, with the spiritual realities and the others, without first having reshaped or worked on their perception of these things, which can be quite dangerous. It's like wanting to reach a place, but there's a body of water in the middle, in between, and you just throw yourself into the water without first observing it and the things that happen in there. It could be loaded with animals that will most definitely eat you. The change of currents and water levels each season, sinkholes, whirlpools, etc. You want to swim to reach the other side because it seems to be the fastest and best approach. However, if you observe and be attentive to the environment, perhaps you will learn to construct a boat or wait until it is either safer or less dangerous to cross. I think it is better to measure the situation rather than putting yourself in danger and only then realize what should have been done, but now it is too late when you are already drowning. Certainly, and without a doubt, many aspects of your own experience while you undertake experiments when dealing with magic through your life will certainly be gathered on the spot. And several times you will see yourself between the sword and the wall. However, that is for people who have already gained a bit of experience and have the luxury to commit some risks and be bold. But for those taking the first steps, it's better to act in a way that will mitigate any harmful outcome as much as possible. We won't be fully protected against harmful circumstances, remember that, but we can minimize them. And to do so, we really need to first understand what we are getting ourselves into. The safest approach is to change our perception of the world and the reality of the spirit realms and the persons involved. No point in explaining that again, don't worry, because that has already been addressed on the previous video I have spoken before. However, when you start to put yourself out there and make your own experiments, you will begin to attract attention. You have made yourself the object of spirit attention. Not just of spirits, but other humans as well, who have been practicing for a longer time than you have. In this type of life, it is part of the process to form a relationship with other persons which can become our auxiliary entities or auxiliary persons. For instance, you form some symbiotic relationship with a local spirit or a relationship of mutual respect, trust, and efficiency with a spirit entity inhabiting your own domestic environment, could even be an ancestor, or you even engage in a group or form a group with human persons such as yourself, and there's mutual aid, and this helps the person to grow and thrive and even survive when dealing with magic work. But we have to be careful because not every person has the best intention. And if you don't yet have some experience you have gained on your own, or if you are in a state that you are not confident and self-assured, it's best not to yet create any relationships or new relationships with any sort of person, be that human or otherwise, that have been attracted by what you do. You see, it's rather difficult to understand the intentions of others. And sometimes it seems there's no middle ground and we either risk it or we don't. However, I believe there is a middle ground, at least in my experience. In this type of life or work or both, the relationships you create that helps you to grow and thrive and survive are not spontaneous. It takes time and patience. And the more you engage in this, the more experience you have and the more familiarized with the environments you become. And in turn, those inhabiting or existing in such environments will get used to you and your presence and slowly trust is built. This is the best approach to minimize unwanted harmful outcomes, in my experience. Going slowly, step by step, getting to know the body of water before trying to cross it or jump into it. So when you attract attention, there are persons that will be drawn to you. Some are quite eager to form relationships with you. So always be wary of that, because this attention you have created, especially if you are giving your first steps, may be your weakness or turned into a weakness that others want to take advantage of, and that's why they are so eager to form a relationship with you or interact with you in any way. In your interactions with persons, always be polite, respectful, humble, but open your eyes. Not being too eager for immediate results may save you quite a bit of trouble. So in your approach, if you are not eager, why should others, right? When a person is too eager to make a relationship with you, of course, it may not be entirely with harmful intentions, but certainly that person lacks patience, discipline, and perseverance, which are the tools of success in this endeavor to acquire magical power. As such, there may come a harmful outcome whether such persons intended or not. If you are new to magic, witchcraft, traditional folk magic, call it what you will, do not enter in any long-term arrangements and relationships. In the beginning, everything is changeable and negotiable, and it will continue to be throughout your life. But in the long run, you will most certainly establish certain long-term relationships that will be useful to you, and so you may continue to survive and thrive, but not in the beginning, okay? In the beginning, everything is a discovery, and you should not be so eager and bold to immediately attach yourself to someone or some group. Take it easy and slowly. But that's just my experience, of course. What I have learned. No matter what I say, you will eventually commit a mistake. There will be errors. You will fall prey to some persons or groups. And that will also give you knowledge, provided that you survive. It is rather dangerous that most people in modern talks and books about witchcraft and magic and the occult never mention the fact that people actually die. It is a possibility. There are several risks and several harmful situations. It's like with shamanism. In our Western cultural in our Western cultures, shamanism has been romanticized in such a way that it has become a passing shadow of its true nature. A shadow cast down by a tree, and people just stand beneath it by this shadow, lying down, meditating, drumming a little, and having a good time, which is perfectly all right. But that's not shamanism. People die. People actually die in actual shamanism. Death is the very initiation through which people become shamans in the first place, but only those who survive. So here it's more or less the same thing, because it's an experimentation, consecutive actions and interactions until success and changeable circumstances. It is dangerous. So this is the moment when you set up boundaries. Some persons, human or otherwise, may be too eager, and you don't have to discard them on the spot just yet, because you don't know yet, or you don't know the intentions and what possible outcomes may sprout from these situations, not yet. So instead, construct your own ground where you have a better control of action, meaning communicate your intention and express that now is not the time, but you want to have this interaction again at some point in your life later on. So mark the place, mark the time, control the situation. It's not just your patience and perseverance you are testing, but also of others. Their intentions are revealed through time and safe approaches, step by step. Give them a little of you, ask them to give you a little of them at each occasion, at each interaction. We don't jump into unknown waters, but rather we test the water. This is an approach for every sort of persons you will encounter, be they human, elves, fae folk, dancing people, land spirits, wights, ancestors, trickster spirits, anyone. Also useful on a date. Don't get yourself killed, please. It's important not only to test who these persons are and what they want, but also to question them. You progressively engage with persons. It's safer, again, in my experience, to progressively leave an apple at a specific spot on a regular basis and gain the trust of the entities that there reside, when you have caught their attention. Then to fully throw yourself in the arms of the first entity that comes to you, or you come to them into their territory. You are not the only one setting up rules and boundaries and taboos. If you transgress the boundaries of another, it is quite disrespectful. Hence the need to always be polite, respectful, test the boundaries, gaining trust. What do you think it is the best approach? To enter a burial mound head first, or stating your intentions and leave an offering? This is just an example to illustrate this. Go easy and have patience. It's simply a question of good manners. Treat others the same way you would like to be treated. Unless, of course, you are into bondage and, well, that's another thing. But then again, even in BDSM sex, there are rules, safe words, passwords, there's trust, and above all, there is consent. Good manners and consent, and you will learn and be better equipped to defend yourself and to minimize harmful outcomes. It will serve you well in trying to discern who is helpful and who isn't. This, like everything else said here today, is just advice to create the foundations of your work before rushing to anything concrete. This whole video is about preparation before the work. However, once you get to the work, maybe a little tip won't do any harm. Work until you get inspired. Sometimes we wait for inspiration to start working. However, magic, witchcraft, the occult, traditional folk magic is very much an experimentation or about experimentations. So work until you get inspired and not the other way around. Now, I shall finish this video here and more advice on the next one, if you want more of this, of course. Tell me what you think, and if this proves to be useful to many of you, I shall continue and perhaps turn this into series, who knows. If not, no problem whatsoever. The natural cycles and the world continues to exist regardless of our opinions. If you have made it this far in this video, congratulations. You really are working on your patience. If you have patience for this, you probably have patience for many other things in life. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time and patience. See you on the next video. And as always, thank you for today. Farewell, my dear friends.